Legends, welcome back to the Peak Performance Podcast, and we are extremely lucky to have one of our very own here today. We could probably spend 40 minutes just listing off your accolades and career path there, Burgo, but Darren Burgess, the great man, he needs no introduction. Thank you very much for joining us, mate.
Cheers, mate. Good to see you guys, and yeah, happy to chat. Love the podcast.
Now, we're going to kick off. Where are you joining us from? Because everybody knows that you've made the big jump recently, very well publicised. And I know I can only imagine your phone, but our phones were blowing up when the news came up. Whereabouts are you at the moment, mate?
I'm in a place called Bodø in northern Norway. You can't get much more northern than this. It's -9, -10 degrees, I think, out there now. It's 6:30 in the morning. So we've got a Champions League game tonight against Bodø, who yeah, pretty strong team at home because no one really wants to come here and play in this. I'm pointing out there because out there I've got a magnificent view of a very small town. Yeah, so we played tonight and we need to win big time. So it's a big game for us.
And congratulations on your new role. For those who are listening who don't know, where is your new role and who are you involved with?
Thanks, Jamie. The role is Director of Performance for a football or soccer, as we call it in Australia, but let's call it football because now we're all football people here. For Juventus Football Club in Italy. It's a club, pretty historic club, based in northern Italy in a city called Turin. The role involves all aspects of performance and medical and psychology and data and nutrition and all that sort of stuff for the men's team, the women's team, as well as all the academy teams as well. So it's a pretty exciting role, and yeah, Turin's a magnificent city, and we're settling in well. But yeah, really enjoying it so far.
Amazing. And obviously, yeah, a big upheaval for you and your lovely wife, Martha. But we heard that your little dog, Gussie, actually made the journey over as well. So how is Gus settling in?
Yeah, well, Gussie, it was a stressful experience. The 3 or 4 days while we were here and Gussie was in transit. More stressful, I think, for Martha than Gussie. But one of the great things about Italian life is that the dogs can go anywhere. So Gussie strolls into restaurants, cafes, department stores like she owns them. So she's adapted magnificently well to
That's good to hear.
Italian life. Literally, you just walk your dog wherever you go. So yeah, she's loving it.
Hey, Burgo, I actually, for the most part of my life, not even just career, have been an oval-shaped ball man, but I've definitely changed my terminology in the last 6 months, also working with Adelaide United, and I've fallen in love with the game, to be honest with you. Jamie does give me a little bit of stick of getting up to watch every form possible, but it's given me a vested interest, and also I do enjoy that connection, to on a very small scale, the work that you're doing. Here in Australia, obviously, even at the top tier in the A-League, we have pretty generous turnarounds. Obviously, for the most part, we're into week 6, and most of our turnarounds have been 7, 8, even 13 days with the international break. So it's been very easy to squeeze in all those beautiful aspects of physical performance. I know we were discussing the other day when we were on the phone that you're in a period now up until maybe, was it the 21st of December, where you have games every 3 days. Maybe it's up to you how in-depth or how brief you'd like to be with, I guess, your explanation, but how do you squeeze in any type of training or physical preparation in those short time frames over that extended period of time as well?
Yeah, it's something that I don't think we as in Australians appreciate too much. The volume of games that go on. As an example, I arrived here on Saturday, the 18th, I think it was, of October. We played on Sunday at Como in magnificent Lake Como, which is a great setting, but unfortunately we lost. Then we played in Real Madrid on the Wednesday, and then we played Saturday. So we went Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday. For 4 weeks, we kept that up. So it was 8 games in 23 3 days or something ridiculous like that before the international break. And then those players, most of our players, I think there was only a handful that stayed around in the international break, then went and played 2 games for their country, most of which were meaningful World Cup games in that sort of 8-day period there. So how do you get training in? It's pretty hard to do. And I think what you do when you're in these situations is you recalibrate what training is. So for a great strength dose for an Australian football AFL team might be a 35-minute lower body session where you hit all body parts and you hit all your hip joint at all of its range of motion, and whereas over here you just can't do that because you can't leave anything on the players because they have to play in 2 days' time and 1 day at a time. You're only dealing with match day -2, +1, and -1. That's it. And so you've got to look at take opportunities after games to get some loading in. You've got to take opportunities for substitutes that don't play much game time. Particularly what happens in clubs is either you run them afterwards or you come in the next day and train. And because we've got the group coming in and recovering the next day, those substitutes come in the next day and train. So you've just got to pick moments to get small doses in. And the thing about it that you've probably realised, Sean, and you will realise over the Christmas period where the A-League sort of ramps up, is that the injury rates are no different to what they are in AFL. So in AFL, we program 4 and 5 strength sessions a week, and you must get 3 Nordic exposures or eccentric exposures a week. You just have to get that, otherwise you'll get hamstring injuries. We haven't done a Nordic in the 5.5 weeks that I've been here. The players get enough eccentric exposure through their training and through speed exposures. So yeah, just it forces you to recalibrate aspects of performance which you thought were absolutely integral for injury prevention that in this environment just aren't.
Mate, amazing insight. And I guess the other thing I've learned, again, only on a very small scale, is dealing with the different cultures. I've learned, I've listened to a bunch of other podcasts that you've been on, and obviously just through organic discussion, and you see similar outcomes for guys who have been doing structured S&C all their life to those. We've got a Brazilian import at the moment who has probably barely lifted a weight in his life, but played in a favela for 8 hours a day, 5 days, or just 7 days a week, and has the thickest thighs and the biggest ass that I've ever seen on anybody. How are you going with the different nationalities that you're working with in this new environment? Is it more diverse than the Premier League, or is it like for like from your experience so far?
Yeah, well, I guess one of the things about being lucky enough to work with one of the bigger clubs in Italy, I think it's the biggest, and Juventus supporters will be upset if I don't say it's the biggest club, because it is the biggest, is that it's an international club. And so we only have maybe 4 or 5 Italian players in the squad. So you get exposed to a whole bunch of different cultures, like you said, and different ways of training. And probably in my early days, going into Liverpool, which was, 15, 16 years ago now, we thought, no, this is how you must train. You must train like this because this is how, we've done it successfully in Australia. And whereas it opened my eyes a lot to different ways of training. And I remember at Liverpool, we had a Brazilian midfielder called Lucas Leiva who ruptured his ACL against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, and 6 months to the day he returned. And that would just be never heard of, and successfully returned in probably the most dynamic sporting league on the planet, in the Premier League, as a central midfielder who has to accelerate and decelerate. And again, AFL people will be looking, but there's no contact. The contact ACLs you can't really prevent in a tackle, and I can assure you the lower legs of a Brazilian midfielder move just as quickly and rapidly as anything seen in the in the AFL. So it's just a different philosophy that you have to adjust to. And I honestly think, that some of the things that I've certainly used a lot of things from AFL here in football, and if I go back to the AFL, I'll certainly use a lot of things from football back into the AFL, and that's one of them, the different philosophies and ways in which you can train, which I've been lucky enough to see work. So one of the hard things, though, Sean and Jamie, is pretty much all of our players, bar about 4 or 5, have their own staff, and I mean staff, not just a fitness coach, the physio, doctor. So a lot of the staff's time at Juventus is spent negotiating with their own private staff around training methods, and sometimes we've had some injured players go back to their countries and do some training with their staff. So that's a challenge, getting the right information and understanding what they're doing. But that's a global challenge in any sport.
And being involved, obviously, in your role with so many departments, and as you've just mentioned, there are so many different individuals that are looking after the players and the players. How is the language barrier? Is English widely spoken, or have you had to do a bit of learning of Italian yourself, or how's that shift been?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Jamie, and it's a hard one because they speak Italian. That's the language spoken at the club. Pretty much every person here can speak English, but you're working and living in Italy, so they're not going to speak English just because some Aussie can't speak Italian. So I've had maybe 4 or 5 lessons. I've done all the apps and all that sort of stuff. Listened to some audibles, and so I'm getting there. I'm comfortable enough in a cafe and a restaurant, but talking about a short versus long corner and whether people should be doing eccentric exposures during the week is a bit tougher. So certainly, I guess the performance medical staff speak English when I'm around, which is accepted, but that is a barrier that that I'm going to have to respectfully, but in time, cross over. So don't ask me to do any Italian here.
We won't put you on the spot. We won't put you on the spot. Don't worry.
There's a lot of hand signals, but I'm learning.
Yeah, and this is obviously relevant to your context at this point in time, but I think that this could be translatable to anybody who's transitioning roles or working their way up the ladder. You come into this foreign environment. There's obviously people that potentially are set in their ways. How do you find that fine balance between changing enough to potentially sort of, almost, I don't know, for lack of a better word, be relevant and be seen to be making a difference and sort of almost justifying your position, but also not rocking the boat, not changing so many things that you're going to cause a heap of injuries? That's a really fine juggling act.
Yeah, it is a juggling act, and I'm not sure I've always mastered it really well. So, but this is as challenging an environment because of the language and because of the traditional ways in which football is done in Italy. One of the things that has happened around, if we take the Premier League as an example, because everyone knows that, is about 30 years ago, Arsene Wenger revolutionised what was going on because everything in England was done the British way. This is how we do things because this is Britain. And Arsene Wenger came in, revolutionised it, and then they brought in these influences from Spain and from Germany and from Italy, and so now it's this cross-cultural mix of performance coaching, and so over 20 years, probably particularly the last 15 years, they've borrowed from a whole bunch of different cultures. In Italy, the most successful teams have almost exclusively had Italian coaches. So there's been, this is how we do it in Italy. Italy is different from the rest of the world. This is how we do things. So you have to be respectful of that and understand that. And clearly there's been some incredibly successful teams. So I'm not arrogant enough to think that, that I can come in and change what has worked for Juventus since 1897, I think it is. So you have to be respectful, but also if you see some big rocks that are not the right way, are not done the right way, it's it's a challenge, but I do it through education. Okay, get people in a room. What do we think about changing to? I'll use eccentric exposure because we've spoken about that. How many do we think we need to have a week? Okay, if we have a Saturday to Saturday game, when would we put those in? Okay, because we don't have a Saturday to Saturday, and get them to come up with the answers. Implementing those is another challenge because the footballers are used to a certain way of doing things. So the only way in which I've known it to be successful, to answer your question, Sean, is through educating the staff and the players, which is what I've just started to do. I'm not sure the players for the first 3 weeks knew what the hell I did. So I've just started to get in front of them and start educating them as a group and individually. A lot of them are wearing, Whoop bands and Oura rings and Apple watches, and so they're all really invested in their performance and their career, which is great. So that's a lead in to start educating them a little bit. Oh, what are you seeing? What are you finding? Is there any way I can help with that?
Fantastic.
I'm sure a lot of people listening, and you and Sean could probably sit and talk for a long, long time about the sport and the intricacies of that. However, I'd like to slightly shift the conversation since knowing you and having this relationship through the business. Something I think I've really enjoyed having conversations and listening to you talk both formally and informally is some of your coaching philosophies and how you really integrate the psychology into what you do in your job. I'd like to dive a bit into that and, what is your philosophy on integrating and how important is the psych or mental side of things in your role?
Yeah, it's absolutely critical, Jamie. It's a great question. I've enjoyed speaking with you about all aspects of that sort of performance as well. We have here at Juventus, we're lucky enough to have a psychologist who has worked with the Italian Olympic Association. In fact, is head of the psychology department for the Italian Olympic Association. So he's worked with some incredible Italian athletes, particularly in the sort of skiing and that area where Italy are really strong. What is my personal philosophy? I've shifted a lot from from just exclusively physiology into more a holistic philosophy of performance. And I guess if you ask, hopefully if you ask athletes that I've worked with, that I've had some success with, it's getting to know what motivates the player, which takes some time. It's not a 1 year or a 6 month process, because often when you ask them that, they will tell you what they think you want to hear. But it's getting to understand how their motivation can interact with the team's motivation and can interact with the leading players in the group's motivation, and finding a sweet spot there. It's not I'm not trained in that, so I'm not pretending to be a psychologist, and nor would I ever. But I've worked with a couple in particular of incredible psychologists that have sort of showed me the benefit of understanding the total environment. So that is what clothes people wear, what's written on the wall, what colour is in the dressing room, what just details like that, which we've started to change here, which can have these subconscious and conscious effects on performance, what language to use with the players, what language not to use with players and staff. I think they're all really, really important, and all really, really deliberate if you want to affect total performance. One of the things that, as an example, and this is a really easy example, which most people would understand, but we're going into an environment tonight that nobody wants to be here. And this is going to come out after tonight's game, so hopefully we get a win. But the challenge for the coach and is to shift the mindset of the players, because as soon as we wandered around the stadium last night, you could see like players are in these. If anybody looks at the photos, in these big puffer jackets that Adidas produced for the players specifically for this trip. If this was in Australia and you're in winter and you're playing in Tasmania and I was more heavily involved in the day-to-day operations. I would make it my business to not mention the cold, to downplay it. So yeah, that's the challenge to the challenge that I've got in this current environment is because I'm not necessarily hands-on. This is the first time I've worn it, literally the first time I've worn a tracksuit in 5 weeks. I'm wearing a suit these days, so trying to relate to players and staff when you're in a cheap Australian suit is not as easy as what it was in Australia when in the AFL the players would I'd have a lounge room and a Red Bull fridge and a coffee machine and a soda stream in my office so that players would come in and sit down and we could talk and get to know them better. It's a really long answer, Jamie, but it's a complicated question, as you know better than most.
Absolutely, and as you mentioned, I think it can feel like a little bit of a grey area, and a lot of coaches that I've talked to, I guess, as you mentioned, S&C coaches or people in high performance management roles deal with the numbers and come from a more quantitative than a qualitative world. And not that I'm a psychologist at all either, but come to me and talk about being interested in it as a strength and conditioning coach, but are really confused maybe where to start, and that qualitative sort of world doesn't mesh with how they've been trained. So for any coaches who are interested in adopting some of those philosophies, do you have any advice where to start, any practitioners, articles, or just anything that you do that coaches can sort of sink their teeth into to practically apply in their coaching work?
Jamie, I'm so glad you asked because this is an area that this and leadership are the area that I spend most of my time studying outside, and of course Italian language outside of the numbers. So I'm just finishing off a course which is really relevant, but I wouldn't recommend it just yet, called Syntropy, which is with a couple of really well-known psychologists based in England, one of which I worked with before at Arsenal, which has been the most intense course of my life, comfortably more intense in terms of the knowledge than my PhD and all manner of things, which has looked at different philosophies and philosophers and how it relates exclusively to performance, whether that's performance in corporate or performance in what we would call performance, and that's been done with England rugby coach and British Lions coaches and All Blacks coaches, and so that's been insanely beneficial and has reframed my thinking in the last. I started the course when I knew that it was likely that I was coming here in order to help me have a better understanding. So that hasn't really answered your question. I look at a lot of philosophies and philosophers. So the easy one to go to is Stoicism. That's everywhere. It's pretty commercial now. Not everything that's commercial by the likes of Ryan Holiday and those sorts of people is accurate, but it's pretty good and gives you a good understanding of things. Podcast world can be pretty dangerous because you have people like Huberman and Attia sort of talking, just getting around the edge of the mental side of things. They're probably far more beneficial for the physical and longevity and those sorts of things. But YouTube is a really good source of different TED Talks and lectures that have been filmed by more famous psychologists working with performers. So I probably started with psychs that I knew were working in performance. So Michael Gervais and those sorts of people, they have a podcast. So I started at that sort of surface level, and and that's where I'd suggest people to start, and then find your way and find your balance in there, because it can be a pretty murky, intense sort of world, which I don't claim to understand at all.
Love it, mate. For me, talking to the athletes who have been fortunate enough to be under your guidance, they always sort of say to me that Burgo's superpowers are his processes and his storytelling, if we're going to really simplify that. So I think you have a great ability to, obviously your practices and your content is unbelievable, but the next level in your skill set is your ability to convince people that their capacity is higher, that their ability to push is. And I remember, we ran some little coaching courses on the mezzanine level, many moons ago at Peak One, which is fantastic. And I remember, a few great examples of, whether it be Lorimer Mosley or you showed us some research of Korean cyclists who felt that they'd pushed their absolute limits and showed that there was still, plenty of glycogen left in their muscles and those sorts of things. So I love all those little stories that you provide for us, mate. We are, starting to push towards the end. I want to quickly zoom out from your current role. People look at us and say, you guys are pretty busy. I said, you wait till you meet our business partner. Outside of this, you consult or what's your role for FIF Pro? And tell us about a few of the projects that you've got going on with them at the moment and how that's starting to shape the landscape of load management and data collection for professional footballers around the world.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I'll just touch briefly on your previous point, though, Sean, if I can.
Yeah,
the
please.
storytelling is a really interesting one because I reckon that some of the I remember speaking to some coaches in the AFL. It's in the last 5 or 6 years, and their belief is probably that Burgo and others, not just me, just tell good stories and just convince players by telling stories, and some of them are a bit fake and a bit, not really true. But what he does is he convinces players, which is great. I think there's a knowledge gathering process that needs to happen in order to tell those stories, right? So when you know that I'll use Joshua Shelley as an example, who most of our listeners would know. When he came into the club, he's an 18-year-old confident kid. How am I going to connect with this kid, or with Dan Curtin, or with Sid Draper, or with Keenan Yildiz, who is probably valued at about, in fact, he would be valued at Australian dollars, just short of 200 million Australian dollars. So that's 20 AFL teams, right, in one player who's 20. How am I going to relate to him? So once you know what the players are into and looking at, and with Josh, he would be into looking at what NBA players are doing for recovery and then you can start to frame where you target those players, and not necessarily in any kind of conniving sort of way, but so I would watch any Netflix doco that I could get my hands on. Martha would have to sit through and watch them with me. Any podcast that was around performance, so that I could say to these players, when I hear them talking about, if you watch the latest Stranger Things, I'd sit there and watch it, or and that would be a way in which I could speak to them. And so it's not just convincing them or telling stories. It's making sure you watch the starting 5 docos on NBA and those sorts of things, which that's not your 9 to 5 job. But these are things which I can't do that because I'm too busy tonight, or I've got a 50th on, or something like that. No, that's your job. If you want to do it well, is to relate to these players. As a 51-year-old trying to relate to a 18-year-old potential billionaire, the amount of money that Yildiz is going to earn in his career. So the storytelling is important, but there has to be some facts behind it, because players aren't stupid now. 20 years ago, there was no social media, so you could tell stories as much as you wanted, but now they can fact check you. So to get to your question, one of the things that I've had to do with Juventus is drop a lot of projects and a lot of things because this is an all-consuming role. One of the things that I asked permission to keep, and they said yes, was FIF Pro work, because they realise how important it is. So FIF Pro is an organisation that is like a players' union, and there exists none in international football. So everyone knows how strong the Players Union is in the AFL, which is protecting players' rights, and the loads that they're exposed to, it's needed more than ever in international football. So I'm their high performance advisor, high performance consultant, and we've put together a network of about 14 high talent individuals that work in football or have worked in football, and we provide FIFPro with guidance on how many days break players should have between games, when they should travel, looking at the match calendar, what sort of how many internationals should players play, what's the perfect number of games, what's too much, what's too little. So I really enjoy that. I've been doing it for maybe 3 or 4 years, and they're based in Amsterdam, so they're a bit closer now to go and visit the great people at FIFPro. So it's important work, and even things like data privacy and stuff, which we wouldn't even think of as being an issue. It's always been, no, I'm a sports scientist, I own the data. No, the players do, and the players ought to go to have that with them when they travel from club to club. So long answer to that question, but I enjoy doing that. And the only other project I've got going is Peak.
Well, that's where I was gonna finish off and say on your long list and long line of amazing things that you're doing. We're very grateful that you play a big part in our business and in Peak. So I guess to close down for everyone listening, what drew you to these two people sitting on the couch and what we do?
Yeah. Well, you listen to all these podcasts, and there wouldn't be a day where I wouldn't listen to 3 or 4 podcasts just while I'm walking or doing whatever I'm doing. And everybody always says it comes back to people, but I don't think people actually live that. And I did as much research on Juventus, for instance, as Juventus did on me, I'm sure, in terms of the people involved. Because if you're not working with good people, that's not just the CEO or the coach or anything like that. Coach got sacked after 8 days of being here, so there's no point in the research I was doing on the coach. On the staff, are they good people? Are they good to work with before joining? And this is exactly what happened with Peak. Staff, Greg and I had maybe half a dozen opportunities to join similar franchises or start our own franchise when we were looking around for something. And it was wholly and solely you two that and your philosophy, not just on training, because I'm sure if we dug down to it, Sean, you and I would have different philosophies from time to time. But it is the holistic philosophy of training people, and the people that you guys are that drew both of us to this project, if you like. And I don't really call it a project; it's more of a family and a community. So I feel very privileged to be part of it, and a really small part of it. But that's 100% what I see when I come into the facility. It is a genuine community. It's not fake. It's not put on or anything like that. And I've come in however many times unannounced, not so there's no way that anybody could know that I was just coming in to have a bit of a look, or coming in with the kids. And it is a genuine community. So that's what drew me to the place, and I will be there for as long as you guys have me.
Thank you, great man. We're very, very grateful to have you on board, and for us, to be able to continue to lean on you, have you guys as sounding boards has been invaluable. And there's been so many times where I usually am a bit more gung ho, and have the three of you to just pull the reins in, or ask some other questions as well, and help us with that process.
Discussions at the dinner table now, I can say, hang on a minute, let's get the boys on the phone and have somebody else to talk to.
But no, we couldn't be more thankful for your trust, for your support, for your mentorship and friendship as well, mate. We do wish you all the best of luck with obviously the Champions League tonight and beyond that as well. I'm sure if we can try to sneak you in for another half an hour, we might delve into the private side of things a little bit more. If there's anything I've taken out of this, is that I don't need to wait anymore. Usually, Burgo, I'd wait till Jamie's eyes closed. We sort of get the kids to bed at 7 o'clock, and then I wait till she passes out until I can watch All In by Arsenal, Sunderland Till I Die, starting 5. So, Jay, it's just some industry research.
Awesome, great. Thanks for that, Burgo.
Happy to help, and can I just say to the listeners out there that what you see with Jamie and Sean on on the gym floor is exactly what you see on the dance floor. I can say
Hang on a
from,
minute.
our wedding, the highlight of the wedding for most of the people there was Jamie and Sean on the dance floor.
I'm so sorry if I embarrassed you, mate. But my highlight was when
I just want to say it's real, it's authentic.
my highlight was when I came out of the bathroom, and again the beauty of Jamie is there's almost a bit naive, or you don't get sort of caught up in some of the big names. And I walk out and she's there talking to Lorimer Mosley, who I've followed for a decade, and she's on some bloke was chatting to me. I was like, Jamie, you know who that is? So I subsequently went and chased him down and chewed his ear off for half an hour between dancing. But mate, thank you very much, Burgo. You go get out in that snow run, and look forward to chatting to you very soon.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for having me.
So there you have it, the chat with our man, Big DB, from a physiological standpoint, which is the part that I do love, is just reframing our thoughts around what physical performance or training is.
And for me, I think a big takeaway was the importance of strength and conditioning coaches diving in, learning a bit more about the psychological side of their role and how they can start to integrate that